So everybody's starting to jump on it. And everything just kind of changes really quickly, and it's not the same thing that got you into it in the first place. And we're right in the middle of it. We know it's pretty obvious what they want, but like that's just not what we couldn't bring ourselves to ever cater to what was feeling popular. Like, we just can't do it. So it was just smarter for us just to quit.
Welcome, everyone, to This Was The Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. Before we start, if you need an explainer video for your company, check out my company, drive80.com. You can email me at mike@drive80.com for samples and pricing. Industries I work with are tech, software, medical, pharma, recruiting, nonprofit, accounting, and ed tech. If you don't fall in those categories, I could still do it for you. So yeah, check it out, drive80.com, drive80.com. Codeseven is an influential post-hardcore band from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. They started in the mid-90s and evolved their sound significantly over time. Early in their career, they leaned heavily into metalcore, but as they progressed, their style shifted towards a more melodic, atmospheric post-hardcore sound, blending elements of rock and ambient music. Their album, The Rescue, in 2002 is a standout showcasing this evolution with its lush experimental soundscapes. They disbanded in 2005, but reunited briefly for some shows in the early 2010s. They recently put out their first new album in 20 years called Go Let It In. You can catch it on Spotify or wherever you stream your music. You can also go buy some vinyl over at equalvision.com. I reached out to their Instagram and said, hey, I would love to have you guys on. And I got in touch with Jon, and he said yes, so I got him on the Skype, and this is what we chat about. What it was like to tour recently, starting off with two singers, Howard Stern critiquing their Boys of Summer cover, Dave leaving the band, not wanting to headline shows, changing their sound, getting compared to Cave-In, Me Without You, All the Best Dreams, the Circus Survive tour in 2010, what brought on the new album, and a ton more. Lastly, if you want to support the podcast, you can go over to patreon.com/thiswasthescene and sign up for $1 a month. That helps support the podcast and keep the lights on. You can also go to thiswasthescene.com and scroll down, and there's a little button that says or one-time donation if you don't want to be a Patreon member. And there's a link there to donate. You can Venmo, you can PayPal. That's about it. So if you want to do that, it's great. If not, that's totally cool. That's all I got to say, so feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who would love some punk rock nostalgia. With that said, let's get started. You're in Winston-Salem?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I live in Raleigh now. Did you guys ever play here?
Yeah, we played the brewery quite a few times. Lincoln Theater, that might have been with the band right after Codeseven. I'm not sure if Lincoln Theater was there. Oh, yeah, it was. We played there with Thursday, I think. So, yeah, we played there.
Oh, shit. What year was that?
That was probably the very end of the band, so probably around 2005.
Yeah, I live about, 3 blocks from Lincoln Theater.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't know. You ever hear this band Stabbing Westward?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
They just played there this summer. I thought the place was going to be sold out, and it was maybe 60 people, and I was just like, what? But they just fucking slayed. They were the first band I ever saw live, and I was like, oh my God. Yeah, it was crazy.
I think I've actually seen them, too, a long time ago.
Cool. Well, the purpose of the podcast is to go back in time and kind of talk about the origins of the band. It's really become an archive of stories, just total history from the beginning till present day or when the band breaks up. But a lot of bands I talk to, they ended way back. Like you guys, it says you guys broke up in like 2004, but then you got back together in 2010, and you guys just did a tour last year with He Is Legend. I saw. That's still on your website, by the way.
What is it?
The get tickets for the
yeah. They're all probably out of date. I set that up to where it would still be up there. The ticket links I'm sure don't work, but maybe more for myself, just so I could go back and be like, oh yeah, this is where we play, because it comes up all the time. Like, did we play here? So I just left it up.
What was it like? And we're gonna go back and talk about the origins of the band, but just where we are now to have just come off of a tour within the year. What was that like? Just because I know it's like because I'm 45, and when I was younger, I toured for about, a couple of years here and there with my old band, and I can't imagine getting in a van with a bunch of guys and doing that. So how was that experience?
It was a lot smoother than I thought it was going to be. I was expecting problems, to be honest, and meltdowns. It was pretty long, 6 weeks, but everything went pretty smoothly. We had hotels every night. No sleeping in the van like we would have done back, way back. There's none of that's going to happen. It was actually really easy, surprisingly easy to do. One of the members, James, who's my twin brother who's in the band, he could not go on the tour because he has a little kid. I learned his guitar parts, so I play guitar on the tour, and we put the bass on tracks because everything we play right now is on tracks. So
wow.
It's really so. I just played the bass lines right before we left for tour and recorded them. So that's how we did that tour. When you do get older, it is definitely a lot harder for schedules to align and kids and all that stuff. So, and that was one of the things that we had to do to make the tour work was like he had to stay home. But it was still, it worked out great as far as like, hotels and traveling and whatnot because we didn't take a trailer on that one.
I'm just looking at some of the bands you toured with. So Johnny Booth, I just got in those guys a couple years ago. They're fucking awesome.
Yeah. Oh, they were sweethearts. Love those guys.
And then you guys played with Coheed and Cambria. House of Blues. Jeez, Reggie in the Full Effect. Well, he was on Furnace Fest. That's cool. Which was the last one, quote unquote, which is now not. And then Under Oath. Wow, dude, that's awesome. So let's go back in time, and before we start and get into how the band started, let's talk about yourself and how did you personally get involved in the scene?
That was in high school. I think maybe 10th or 11th grade. Like our school has there's like a breakaway school called Career Center where all the schools in the county would meet up. Our high school wasn't really into anything like I was into musically. I was a metalhead as a kid, and then going to the Career Center, you got to meet and all these kids from the surrounding schools in the county. And there's one school in particular, but like there was, I had classes with some of those kids, and they were playing shows and had 7 inches and T-shirts and all this stuff, and I did not know that was possible to even do in high school. So once I found that group of people, and then found out that kids were going to these shows, and so it started 11th grade probably when I met those dudes.
And this is Winston-Salem where you grew up?
In Winston, yeah.
What was that scene like?
The very start of the scene when we started going, the kids that were booking the shows, they were way into like pop punk and stuff like that. They all had like Liberty spikes and leather jackets and maybe a little crust, but it was all punk at the time, and which was not really my thing at all. We grew up listening to at that time we were probably just like straight death metal. That was our thing. So going to the shows was not, we would go to them, but like it was some punk and ska and stuff, and we weren't into it. But the kids that were at the shows, it was like we were like the same people, and the people that we would hang out with, everything was the same except musically we weren't really listening to the same thing. We were like way into the heavy stuff, and the punk just wasn't really our thing, especially the poppy stuff. But we would go, we'd started going in high school to see, metal shows, Pantera or whoever, Sepultura. And yeah, the crowds there were definitely like, you could tell like, yeah, it's not really, these aren't the people I would probably hang out with. We like the same music, but like I felt way more comfortable with the kids at the punk shows. It's like they were like the same person basically. But yeah, it was all punk. And we really, when I say we, I'm usually talking about the band has 2 brothers in it, a twin brother and a little brother. I don't think any of us were really into the punk stuff at the time, but we kept going just because it was so cool. Everyone was just doing their own T-shirts. They were making their own records and recording and stuff that we didn't know you could even do that. It was very eye-opening.
So I'm guessing because the first iteration of the band is very hardcore sounding, or very hardcore. It almost sounds like hardcore was that, that's how we, going to clubs and seeing Pantera, going to local shows and seeing punk bands, where's that medium ground? And then I'm guessing hardcore comes into you find out hardcore and you're like, here we are.
Basically, yeah. There was, I knew a little bit about like in high school, like Sick of It All. They were on Headbangers Ball a little bit. I knew Quicksand, which is, not quite, a little more post-hardcore, but they were on Headbangers Ball too. So I knew a little bit. There was a TV show like MSNBC or something. They did like a little special on the scene, I guess Syracuse, with Earth Crisis. It looked like exactly like the shows like you would see down here, except instead of everybody freaking out over punk, they're freaking out over this really heavy music. Everybody looked the same. It was like the same thing, but like it blew my mind. It's like, wait, like this scene that I'm in now, it's possible that they would even like heavy stuff. Seeing that, and I've looked it up, it's on YouTube. It's really a little expose on straight edge or whatever. But then I went to the record store in town after I saw that, and I thought it's just like probably this small little thing, but they had the record. I didn't know anything about Victory Records, and I did not expect to find it, but it was there. Destroy the Machines had just came out, and we got that, and that really is what changed everything.
Were these at like the local scene up there? Was because I grew up in Jersey and we had firehouses, churches, Legion halls, Knights of Columbus. That's where we'd all see, and then we go to New York City to see the clubs. What were the establishments that you guys had in Winston-Salem to go see shows?
There was a civic center that would do shows, a place called Pablo's, which started in probably '95, right when we were just getting started as a band. There's a bigger club, Ziggy's, which is where you would go see, Sick of It All came through or whatever. Tons and tons of bands, the bigger bands were playing there. Like that's where I would go see the metal shows, and then there was house shows. There was never the Pablo's was the closest thing to a steady spot, which turned into 533 Uprisings, which was a member of the band ran that. He kind of took it over. That everything during that time frame was at 533, which is basically Pablo's after Pablo's closed down.
Starting the band, and so you have your twin brother, and then your little brother is Matt.
Right.
Okay, and how many years younger?
3.
3 years younger. So I guess you guys all get along as brothers. Was there ever like sibling rivalry or anything when the band started, where you're just like just telling each other shut the fuck up because you're brothers, or you guys just get along really well?
Well, yeah, that's nonstop. That still happens today. It's just you can't get rid of that no matter what. That's just how it is.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and it can make for a slightly hostile environment because you speak how you speak. Over time, the band, everybody starts talking like that to each other, and we're probably considered decently dysfunctional because of that. But it is what it is.
Late in the beginning of it, when you're like, we're gonna start a band with the three of us, was there a bit like you kind of like, I don't know, this is a good idea?
No. It was like the easiest thing because we were all listening to the same things and pushing each other to go down certain paths and how to play together. Like there was never a thought about doing it with anybody else.
So it's Jeff's the singer, and then it also has David as a singer. I saw a video. It was Hate 56, and it's you guys playing, and there's two singers on stage. Was the other guy David?
Yeah, Big Dave is what we call him. He came in right at the beginning too, and he went to the same high school as us. When we were recording our first demo, like he basically joined during that time frame. He didn't sing much on it. He actually played saxophone on the demo, but he became a member, and he's the one that took over the club, 533, or he took over Pablo's and turned it into 533 later on. And he was with the band for the first 2 releases.
So you guys had 2 singers.
We had 2 singers, yeah.
Oh, okay. I always thought it was just the one. The way I was thinking it was Dave was the original singer, and then when he left, Jeff came in. But then, because I was confused when I saw that video, I was like, why is there this other guy up there? Okay, so it's almost like how Cave-In, when they first started, they had 2 singers.
Yeah, but neither one played instruments. So it was just 2 dudes up there with microphones.
One could sing melody, and the other one was the screaming voice.
They would both scream, but only one would really do the melody stuff. Yeah. It was kind of wild. It's kind of different too at the time. I don't know if I'd ever seen that, and that's what we were always thinking. When we were starting the band, it's like let's just try to stand out. However, and 2 singers, nobody playing an instrument, it seemed kind of weird. So we went for it.
So your first release is Paper or Plastic on Heel Records.
Heel, yeah, that's the demo I was talking about. Yeah.
Oh, that's one of the horns, the saxophone.
Yeah, the saxophone is on that one. I don't think it's on any other release.
So you guys do that, start playing shows. What leads to, I guess, your first full length is A Sense of Coalition, right?
Yeah, we get there. The demo, it's never really came out, so we call it a demo, but you would probably call it a release. We put it out, and it actually does really well locally. And then, kids that we didn't think would like heavier music, because it's a little punk maybe, but not a lot. But kids came around to it. Everything was kind of starting to change here, and the hardcore thing was really starting to pick up and starting to take over. Things created a buzz here. The guys that ran Huel, they were in a band called Squatwaller, which was on a label out of New York City that I can't, Spin Art. They were on that label. And so directly across from Spin Art Records in New York was Earache Records, in the U.S. office of Earache Records. They gave the demo to Spin Art because they were like, these guys there's a lot of buzz going around. And they were like, well, this is too heavy for us, but we'll give it to our neighbors. They love heavy stuff. So they gave it to Earache, and Earache loved it. And then they offered us a contract to sign with them, which went on for a while, but we ended up turning it down. It was for a lot of records, and half the band was still in high school, and it just felt like way too much too quick. But the guy, the president of U.S. Earache, was leaving to start his own label, Music Cartel, and he was like, well, if you guys want to come with me, like, I'm about to bail on Earache and start my own thing, and we'll just do like 2 records or whatever, and it'll be real chill. I've got distribution, so we opted not to go with Earache and went with him, Eric Lemasters, so the first 2 records and the EP were on his label, and that's how we ended up there.
So when you guys lead up to recording Sons of Coalition, are you guys touring before this, or do you start touring after it?
We are probably just doing regional.
What would that be? What was the regional for you guys?
Regional, we would go to like Blacksburg, Virginia, Roanoke. We would go down to, Columbia, Charleston. We met the Stretch Armstrong guys are not far from us, and we met them really when we were really young. Maybe down to Florida, nothing too crazy. At the early days, it was just all about trading shows with other bands and, trying to get play as many shows as possible, but yeah. And then when we signed to Music Cartel, I mean, they were really small. Like we didn't have a booking agent. We've never technically had a booking agent, but Dave was, who was in the band, he started running 533, and we got decently successful in our hometown. So we were starting to get a decent draw, and we used that to start trading shows with other bands that we liked. We would ask Boy Says Fire, do you want to come down? Because we had seen them. I didn't see them, but they saw Boy Says Fire on their very first tour they ever did, and came on with a little tape, and it was so good. Once we had a little bit of a base, and once, I guess, email, or I'm not sure how we contacted them, but they were, that's one of those bands like, well, let's trade shows. Like, I can bring you down here, and it'll be a good crowd, and we can pay you or whatever. Just trading shows constantly.
So, like, the bands coming into town, did that kind of open your eyes to saying we can tour as well?
Yeah. I mean, back then, there was a book called Book Your Own Fucking Life, which we had that, and we would use that. And there was some bands that were starting to go on tour and stuff, and grinding it out. And so we knew it was possible. And then, and then we would see them come through, and they would be like, yeah, we're going all the way to California or whatever. And once you know that it's possible, that's when you start looking for it and trying to do it.
Did you ever see that? I don't know why I'm thinking this. Probably just because you're from North Carolina. Did you ever see that video compilation, Actuality of Thought? It's had like the Get Up Kids and Jejune and
Cave-In's on it.
Yeah, Cave-In. They're playing at that skate park in Greensboro.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've seen it.
Did you guys ever play at any of those venues that were in that video? If you can remember.
I mean, I think the skate park was in Greenville, North Carolina.
Yeah, Greenville. Yeah.
Yeah. We never went there. I'm not sure we ever played in Greenville, to be honest. So yeah, a lot of the places there, I think maybe Dick Street or Lee Street in Greensboro was on there, maybe. And we did play Lee Street. Never got to play Dick Street, but I'm not sure. I haven't seen that in quite a while, but I remember the skate park stuff, and we definitely never played there.
When do you guys go on like your first big tour? Is that before Division of Labor, or is that after?
Yeah, well, the first full U.S. tour, our first U.S. tour was supposed to be with Glassjaw. I think it was on Extensive Coalition. I'm not positive. Maybe Division was out. I'm not sure. We knew them. They would come down here. A lot of the Long Island bands we gotten to know, and we would go up to New York and we would if we didn't get to play, we would just go watch with like Silent Majority, Indecision. And Dave had become pretty good friends with those dudes. So we did quite a few shows with them up the East Coast. But they were part of the Long Island thing, or Indecisions, I guess not. But so a lot of those bands up there, the Movie Life, we started trading shows. Sons of Abraham, which was some of the guys from Glassjaw, they would come down. And I think Movie Life's first ever show was down in North Carolina. Their first out-of-state show was in North Carolina. We were friends with Eddie, who was in that, and we would stay at his house, who lived with, I think, the singer for Silent Majority. I'm not sure. So I don't know how, but we would trade shows a lot between Long Island and Winston. And so we got to know, and then Glassjaw was one of those bands, so we got to know them, and I think we thought, like, musically we were thinking, like, Faith No More, and a little bit different than just hardcore, and so we got along pretty well. So that was going to be the first tour, and then, like, not a few weeks before the tour was supposed to start, they signed with Ross Robinson. And they were like, Ross wants us to go right to the studio or something like that. I don't know. So we still did our half of the tour, which is like the eastern half of the U.S. But the West Coast, which was more them, that all got canceled. That was technically our first tour, but we only did half of it because they bailed on us.
I don't know why I'm thinking of this, because you're just naming like Long Island. Adam from Take Back Sunday, didn't he grow up in Winston-Salem?
Yeah, High Point, right beside. Yeah.
Did you know him before? Did you know him before he was in Take Back Sunday?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I mean, so bringing some of the Long Island bands down and stuff, that's where he's like hanging out and meeting them. Yeah, Eddie, like we would stay with Eddie up there, which he was, I think, and then Eddie would come down with Movie Life. I don't know exactly, but around those when we would trade shows, that's where he met. But I'm pretty sure his first show he ever saw was Codeseven show. Oddly enough, he said that in a couple interviews.
So basically, you're the reason that Taking Back Sunday became a
Oh
band.
yeah, let me just go ahead and take credit for that. Yeah,
I mean, kind of like an indirect way. It's like you kind of, if you're bringing bands down, it's
it definitely wasn't. We were maybe a little piece of that for sure. Yeah.
That's super cool. Did you guys? What were your live shows like? Like when you first started in the first couple of years? Like what was the crowd like for you guys?
It was always really, really strong. Like we ended up going kind of soft, but when we were playing the early days and the heavier stuff, people would get pretty into it. Like and sing along. Especially we did the Boys of Summer cover, which is what really helped get us out there because it did well in the CMJ charts. I know, and WSOU was playing it a lot in New Jersey, and because of that, like it even got on Howard Stern show, and he critiqued it versus their original, which was really kind of crazy.
What did he say? What did he say about it?
I think he liked it better. I never actually heard it, but the clip, but like especially everyone from up there is telling us about it. This is still kind of pre-internet. Trading files and clips and stuff didn't really happen, but yeah, I think it was positive from what I remember.
This is also before Ataris did the cover, right?
Oh, way before. Yeah. By that time, we had kind of we were, because like it had done pretty well. That's like people were coming just to see that song and the cover, and we were like not really happy about that. It's like, what about the stuff we wrote? And it was kind of getting irking us to where we stopped playing it, which was maybe a bad move. I don't know. That's typically how Codeseven works. People want it, we'll do something different.
Have you guys played it all recently, or is it completely off the set list?
No, we played it on New Year's Eve. And we did it at Furnace Fest too. Skylar from He Is Legend came out, and we just wanted to do something different. I mean, we'll pull it out every now and then.
I can imagine that being annoying though, because you are like, we have this whole catalog, but you're coming for this one song that sucks. It's cool, but it sucks.
Yeah, and then you get back together and you start playing shows, and now you're like, well, people are gonna think like we're just biting the Ataris or something because they're not gonna know, like we did it like in the 90s and whatever. So that also goes through our heads. Oh, these guys don't even know like the Ataris. This is their song or whatever. So it kind of makes us not want to play it because of that as well now.
So Division of Labor, that comes out. So that right by this point, the band starts what, 95?
Right.
99. I'm like just cheating because I'm on Discogs, but 99 Division of Labor comes out. So you're around for 4 years. This is your third release, and you're still doing like the hardcore stuff. So are you guys starting to progress as a band, going on more tours, getting more people showing up at shows and things like that?
Yeah, by the time Division comes out, that's when everything really, I feel like, starts coming together for us. Another random thing that you don't know that, doing something with Glassjaw, like they're going to end up being huge. Like another band that we met was Poison the Well in Florida. And then we started trading shows with them. They put an opposite, and then it just goes crazy. And then so we start touring with them some. They become really good friends of ours, and they're starting to blow up. So we toured with them a couple different times. The first full U.S. tour we ever did that we actually that went through was with Undying on the Division of Labor. So I think in the 99 or something like that. Maybe 2000. I think that was the first time we made it to the West Coast with the Undying band.
So you guys are establishing yourself. You're already established as a hardcore band. You're playing with harder bands. Rescue comes out, and that's when Dave quits. Right before that.
Yeah, we're kind of like deciding we want to just do something different. Everything felt like it was sounding the same. That all the bands especially local bands, you go from town to town, and it's like everything sounds the same, and we're kind of getting tired of it. We started this band just out of high school or in high school, and as every band does, you start wanting to try new things, and you haven't kind of gotten to that point where you go through phases. Any band that starts in high school, they typically sound different later. And that's kind of what we did. We just were like, we fell in love with OK Computer basically, and Bjork, Harmogenic. Let's do something crazy. Like that was the stuff that we weren't listening to a lot of heavy stuff at that time. And then some of the UK stuff, the Doves and the Brit rock stuff, we were really liking a lot. And every show in the hardcore when we would play, there was fights all the time, and it was kind of driving us crazy. But then we would play with like a chiller band, and those shows were always more fun. They were more relaxed. Everyone's there drinking and enjoying the show instead of fighting. We started to notice that we're having more fun at these chiller shows. And then we were already getting into that ambient.
Bassy kind of shit.
Bassy, yeah. You find Godspeed You Black Emperor was a big one, the first Sigur Rós. And with that, it was just like, well, let's just do some more of this stuff. Let's see what happens if we go down more of that path.
So you wanted the crowd to be less aggressive when you guys were playing?
No, I don't mind that at all. Yeah, in some ways you feel disappointed when you're playing really heavy stuff and nobody's doing anything. That's kind of like, are we doing something wrong? It was just maybe just too much testosterone for us. Our testosterone is starting to chill out. Maybe I don't know. And we were able to start drinking at that point, and we were loving getting really dialed in with the music and getting experimental, and that was just what we got into. And the heavy music, like I said, a lot of, especially when you would go from town to town and play with the local bands who were just doing their version of Earth Crisis or whatever, it just started to feel like monotonous. And it was just like, maybe we need to change things up or something.
Did you guys want to take the band to a level where you're on a tour bus touring? Did you ever get a tour bus?
No. There's like the two things that we've never done. Well, we had the opportunity to do the tour bus actually, but we opted not to do it. We were going to share a bus, but like financially, we weren't sure if we would go in the negative by doing it. So we turned down the chance. So we did not get to do a tour bus. We've never done that. And we've never toured Europe either, which is crazy because every band, even local bands, I feel like made it to Europe. They never really went far outside of their scene, but they somehow made it to Europe. But we've never done. Those are the two things to try to hit before you die. Like that you never got to do. Those would probably be my two. Tour bus in Europe. Yeah, I mean, being on a bus would have been great. And we would, especially near the end, you know, a lot of our peers and whatnot, you started to see them like make that jump. And we would go on tours with bands that have the buses and stuff, and then they're living the life, and we're like sleeping in the van in Walmart parking lots, and it does start to grind on you a little bit.
Did you guys ever party on like a bus when you're on tour? Like for the band you were with?
Oh, yeah, all the time. Yeah, a lot of the bands that got on buses, you know, we would be in vans playing with them beforehand, you know. They made the jump, which is awesome, and we were never able to make that jump, but all the dudes are still awesome, you know.
It's funny that you said that the overseas thing, because on that, I noticed it before. There's this comment on the Codeseven, or the Hate 6 Codeseven December 18th, 2022 show that he put up, and there's the first comments like, this crowd clearly didn't know what to expect. I would pay a plane ticket to the US just to see this live. Yeah, so it's like you obviously, I mean, of course you're gonna have fans overseas, but would you guys ever think of doing like a small stint overseas at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think we could probably pull it off technically if we wanted to. I mean, we probably would make zero money, maybe even lose money, but like we could probably pull it off. It would just be a ton of work. Typically, Codeseven just sits back, and if somebody asks us to do something, we'll do it. Maybe that's kind of how like I said, we never had a booking agent. Like every tour that you know, it just kind of found its way here. You know, we had a manager for a long time. I'm sure he had a lot to do with that stuff too, but. And we've never wanted to do like headlining runs on anything. Now financially that probably hurt us, which is part of the reason why we broke up. We were just falling apart. We were getting older. I just had a kid in 2004, and you know, it was just like, oh my God, I think I'm gonna have to get a real job.
Why didn't you guys want to headline?
I mean, we always felt that if we're gonna have to spend time away from home, I want to do it to grow the fan base instead of play to it, I guess. So it was always about just more exposure, and hoping to play for new people that would kind of jump on board with us. we are always, no matter, even our heavy stuff is a little weird compared to the average band. And then, and then we got really kind of out there weird. And, when we did a lot of tours with more of the emo stuff, and love all those dudes, but like their crowd, especially back then, it was like teen girls, when the Hot Topic stuff started getting big, and MTV, and then kids are, when everything switched from that, from if you know about the scene stuff, about the shows, then you were kind of into it, you were a little bit deeper. But then once it got on MTV and stuff, and then kids were just coming into the shows based just on that, it was like, man, we were completely opposite of what they wanted to hear.
So Dave leaves, and you guys do the rescue, and that completely changes the sound.
Oh yeah, big time.
And you already have this fan base that's hardcore. So when that comes out and you guys start playing this live, what happens with the crowds?
Yeah, it was two-way street on that. Like, there was a lot of people that were not happy at all, particularly in Cleveland for whatever reason. They gave us so much trouble. Every time we would go back, they would come and pay to go to the shows, and just to heckle us and whatnot.
Like, what way? Were you guys playing? They would just yell shit out at you? Or?
Yeah. Just play something heavy. This sucks. Whatever.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, it turns out I think a lot of those kids actually ended up really getting into the newer stuff, but they felt, I don't know why, but they would pay to come. I never quite understood that. But yeah, we got a lot of people, like we were building something up, and it was going good, and then we just completely turned on it, and there were some people that didn't like it, but there were some people, especially in the hardcore community, like I felt like a lot of people, like for the first time, like really gave us some respect from the community, the hardcore community, which I never thought we never quite fit in with all that great with. Like, we were always felt a little bit on the outside. And I felt like when we did the rescue, because we were still, I mean, we would go with Poison the Well or whoever and still play on the rescue with really heavy bands. And it's kind of weird, but it felt like that connected better in some ways. So it was a two-way street. A lot of people didn't like it. But then some people were like, oh, you guys are really sticking your necks out. And this is actually it's not hardcore, but this is kind of cool. And the fact that you're still playing with hardcore bands but doing the sound. So it was double-edged.
Well, two things there. I feel how you guys could play with hardcore. It kind of like makes it easier to stay at the not stay at the show, but if it's just like one screamo thing after another, like, and you guys come in and you're like, it's little just open up the air a little bit. People might be like, oh, this is actually welcome. We're welcoming this right now because it's been a little bit too much, maybe intensity for us right now.
Oh yeah, that definitely could be part of it. I know that when I would go, especially the festivals, it's just like, oh man, I need something a little different here.
When you guys change sound, was it a gradual thing, or did you sit down and say, all right, this next record, we're going to make a hard left?
I think the very last song on Division Labor, which is not on Spotify, but it's a chiller song, and I think that was the last song we wrote for that release. And I think when we wrote it and we were like, oh yeah, we can do this. We could see, like, at the very end of Division, this is possible. So I think once we pulled that off, and that song was always a big one to play live too. People really liked that song, even though it was not the heavy stuff that that all other songs were. And doing that song and was like the start of it, and seeing how well that song would go over live, even though it wasn't a heavy song. And then finding Radiohead and Bjork and all that stuff, Godspeed.
So Leeches of Karma is on Spotify, but it's grayed out. Why is that?
Most likely there's a sample of Moonlight Sonata that ends the album. I'm not sure where the recording came from. I don't know if there was a copyright thing. I have no idea, but that's my guess. And I think I can fix it. So I'm going to try to fix it. The label's not a label anymore. I'm not even sure how or who pays. I don't know how any of our music gets on Spotify, some of the older stuff. But
so I think Jeff's voice, his voice is so strong for that sound that you guys created. I think that, to me, possibly helped the transition work.
Yeah, definitely. And there's on the last song of Division that's not on Spotify. It's a little screamy, but there's melody in there, and there's a little bit of that carried over onto the Rescue, the song The Rescue, at least. That was the one song that kind of tied closely to the last song in Division. That was kind of like our tie-in. It's like, okay, that song will help maybe hopefully get people over the hump. So yeah, he was still doing a little bit of the screamy stuff, but it was with melody, and that he doesn't do really much of that at all anymore. But there was a little tie over with that maybe helped.
Real quick, if you're needing an explainer video, that's what I do for a living. My company is drive80.com. You can email me at mike@drive80.com for some samples and pricing. Industries that I've created explainer animations for over the last 14 years are tech, software, medical, pharma, recruiting, nonprofits, accounting, ed tech, and more. That's all I'm going to say. So now back to the show. So like Codeseven changing their sound when they went to Jupiter, then Antenna, which Antenna is like a total separation from what they sounded like previously. Did that, when you saw that, did that kind of give you guys like a, it's almost like, oh, they did it, we can do that too?
Yeah, I think so. Probably, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it definitely showed that it. I mean, they faced a ton of backlash when they did that. And trust me, we've been compared to Codeseven and everything back in the day. We'd get a review from wherever, and Codeseven's name was always in there. So we've always been. And now we didn't do it because of Codeseven or anything like that. That's just where we started to go. But we loved Codeseven, that's for sure. Beyond Hypothermia, to be honest with you, is probably my favorite record of theirs. And that record is why we went to Kurt in Boston to record Division, was because, well, I think the next record, Until Your Heart Stops, I think that was definitely recorded with Kurt. I think that it just came out when we were starting to think about booking for Division. Yeah, I mean, we've always loved Codeseven for sure, but the comparisons, like, because when I think our version of When We Got Soft versus what they did, I think are completely different, and we were going totally different areas. Yeah, it's a little chiller. They had a lot more rock left, and we went a lot more chill. But yeah, like when we did that, it was just like, oh, you're just copying Codeseven, you're doing this or that. I was like, not really. I don't think this sounds anything like Codeseven. But we did make the change, which was in the same scene, and we were in the same circles, I guess.
I think the only comparison is the fact that you guys were both a harder sound and then went to this chiller sound. I mean, granted, yeah, like I wouldn't say Codeseven did a chiller sound. They went a spacey sound, but if you just took out all the effects pedals, it'd probably just sound like it's rock.
Rock and roll, yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
You guys are like this you create this giant space with the sound that you guys made.
Yeah, it was we were using like, we bought like the GR33 so we could do synths and stuff, and like piano that we would play on the guitar, but it was done through these synthesizers, like just so we could get a little bit closer to what like OK Computer was doing basically.
What kind of tours, or who were you guys touring with at that point when the Rescue comes out?
Rescue comes out, everything, it's been a while. I mean, we did runs, well, Hope's Fall, Love Lost Not Forgotten, I just posted the photo. We did, I don't know if that went around the whole thing. Coheed, I think, was on the Rescue. Yeah, Coheed was definitely on the Rescue. We toured with them. Part of how we ended up on Equal Vision and where we recorded the next record and Woodstock was because of those guys, because they recorded with Michael Birnbaum, and that's kind of how we ended up going there, was with Coheed. So that was definitely on the Rescue, and Me Without You, I think, was on the Rescue. We toured with them.
Oh wow, what were they like?
They were awesome. They were really sweet guys.
Yeah, I just got into them a couple of years ago because there was a lot of bands. Like I always say, this podcast started because I grew up in the Jersey scene in the late '90s, and then when it got into the 2000s, when the scene changed, I was just kind of not accepting of it originally because it seemed like such a fucking fashion show, and it was so annoying. So when all these band names came out and I just read the name, I'm like, oh, this band probably sucks. So it's like I stayed away from Me Without You for decades because I just thought the name would lead to this stupid sound. And then I heard 1979 and I was like, I can't believe I didn't let myself listen to them. And now I just like go back and I'm just trying to listen to as much of them as possible, but they're incredible.
Yeah, that's the song. When they would play that's the song, I think, for them, for me anyway.
Yeah, I heard too that they would, this isn't to turn into them, but like they would go to florists before they played and just get all the dead flowers, and that's what they'd put on their mics.
Yeah, I mean, they did a lot of stuff. They would get bread and share it out in the crowd and stuff, because they were religious and whatnot. So yeah, it was a little much for me when they would start doing that type of stuff. They kind of lose me on that part, but yeah, they were really nice. And they had a bus that was run on vegetable oil, like a school bus, and I don't think I'd ever seen that before, which was really cool.
I guess that kind of brings up when you're on different tours with different bands and they're doing things like that. Their live show is different where you're like, oh, I've never even thought of that. I never would have thought to give out bread, even though I wouldn't do that, or I wouldn't get dead flowers. Was there certain things that you just like little pieces you picked from a band or maybe a couple bands where you incorporated into your live show to progress it, or you just kind of just stayed with what you guys did?
We always, even I think back in Division was when we started trying to bring lights. We saw Botch. They came to 533, Dave's Club. They had the lights. I don't think I'd ever seen that before. Oh no, actually, it was at a biker bar in High Point. It was like only like 20 people there, but they had these lights, and when you're playing back then, a lot of like VFW halls, and there's all this fluorescent lighting, and it doesn't really have a vibe, especially like the bigger shows you go see, and it's all dark and moody. And then, but a lot of the hardcore shows back then were just like under fluorescent lights. But then Botch comes on, and all the lights go out, and you've got this little light show. And it just changed the whole vibe. And that was pretty, for us, it was like, oh, that's what we need.
What kind of lights did you guys use?
I mean, back then we built like these little boxes that we would set on top of the cabinets that we could control with like a Home Depot controller. It had a little slider that we could turn them up and down like halogen lights. And then we had like two TVs in the middle of them, like two really old, really small, like old school TVs from like the 80s that were in the middle of the box that just played static. I think that those were like the first things. And then we eventually converted that to a floor thing or whatever. And then it just kept growing from there. And so we were consistently trying to create a vibe, especially in those early days where there's the fluorescent light. There's that'll kill a vibe real quick.
Yeah. What leads to you guys getting signed to Equal Vision?
Our contract was up with Music Cartel. We have management, and then we're talking to a ton of labels, a lot of major labels. It's everybody can see like this scene's about to blow up, and all the major labels are looking at us, and we're talking to a lot of them. We recorded a song. It ended up on a Volcom release just for one of the major labels because they were like, we're not sure, give us one more. But a lot of our friends' bands were starting to sign. Coed was leaving Equal Vision to sign. Poison the Well had already signed, I think. Everybody, it was kind of the thing to do. It's like, oh, you go to a major label. So we were talking to a ton of labels. At the end of the day, we asked our lawyer. We told her we felt like we were getting the runaround, and we probably were. And we just said, any major label you're talking with, just stop. We don't want to do it.
Why? Why didn't you want to do
it? Just because it felt like everybody, they were all waiting for. Nobody was making an official offer, but they were keeping you dangling the string in front of you. Record this song. It was always very close, but we were just like, you know what? There's too many games, and we don't need this. And we had the lawyers stop any conversations she was having with any major. And then she was like, well, who do you want to sign with? And we were just like, well, Equal Vision. And then she emailed him. Next thing you know, we already knew Dan at Equal Vision who signed us. And we had a relationship with him for a pretty long time. Working with Coed, and they were just singing their praises and about Equal Vision. And Equal Vision was really, really amazing to them when they basically let them go if they wanted to from Equal Vision to go to a major because a lot of money left on the table, but they were like, well, this is good for you. And there were stories like that, like they were willing to let them out of the contract just so they could give it a shot. And that's all we needed to hear. Plus their back catalog, Converge and all this stuff is amazing. So that's, I guess, how we ended up on there. So
is that one of the main requirements of what you were looking for in a label was if we wanted to get out, we could, or is there anything else you were looking for?
No. It was just good distribution, good marketing, and kind of a sound. I think Music Cartel ended up having a sound, but we didn't. We were like the first band, I think, that signed Music Cartel because he was literally working at Earache when he was getting it going, and it ended up being like a stoner label and maybe a little doom, and we had we just kind of assumed it was going to be kind of like Earache, I guess. I don't know. No, we never thought to ask what is there going to be a label sound. So we stuck out like a sore thumb on that label, and there was no like bands on the label that we could really, hey, let's do a little label thing, and it just didn't work. The idea of being on a label that is very thinking the same way you do, and the other bands on the label are very similar to what you're doing, and have the same ideals and whatnot. And that was a big thing because we didn't really have that before. That was another big thing for us to go with Equal Vision for sure.
Did you guys have the record recorded before you signed, or did you record it after you signed it to them? Or like had some songs in the works and then you had to put it all together to give them a release.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure we had some stuff started. But yeah, we signed and then, booked the studio time and whatnot. After that, once we had a budget and all that, what?
I'm guessing All the Best Dreams is probably the most requested song besides Boys of Summer.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple. Doing this tour this past summer, I feel like, because we hadn't played in quite a while. We haven't played any of these areas anyway. We did a U.S. tour in 2010 with Circus Survive, but that's the last time we had been to any of these places for the most part. The people that were coming out, I felt like a lot of it was rescue. The kids were really wanting to hear some of the rescue stuff, which we played. But yeah, I feel like the rescue, there might be a little bit more connection as far as our chiller stuff than some of the stuff on Dancing. At least that's how it felt on tour, but I don't know, I could be wrong. But yeah, but we played all of it. So, I think we played the crucial song, so everybody was happy.
Where do you guys put All the Best Dreams in your set list?
I think it's in the middle. It's somewhere in the middle. We don't save it. We probably play the rescue last a lot of times just because it's a little heavier.
Yeah, that's how I found you guys. It was some comp years ago. I think it was in maybe an Equal Vision sampler or something. And that song just like poked right through. I was like, what is this? That song's so fun. How'd you guys, I just wanted just for personal, like how'd you guys come up with that song? Like what was the intro to it? Just that beginning, I mean, what is the beginning played on?
Yeah, it's a guitar. It's I mentioned we both guitar players got the synth stuff. So there's a GR33 and a VG88 that we were using up until this record. And there's a patch that just has like kind of a 12-stringy sound to it, I guess. But yeah, it's guitar. It's just going through one of those synth thing, Boss rolling synths.
Who came up with the concept for the video you guys did with the rabbit and the little girl?
Yeah, that was the director. None of us were very happy with how that turned out. That was not. I don't know. That's just, you hear the concept, and there was a few concepts rolling around, I guess, but that was the only video that we had gotten to make really, and it was not what we were expecting.
Where'd you guys film it?
New Jersey, I think.
Really?
At some house in New Jersey, yeah, or the backyard of a house in New Jersey, I guess. Yeah. I mean, New Jersey is where we played. That was like because of WSOU, like New Jersey, and maybe a little New York City, Long Island. That was kind of like our second home, I would say. Like for us, like we could do good in the South, but like because of some of the things that were going on up there, like it was always we would go to New York, New Jersey all the time. Like you talk about like the Wayne Firehouse.
You guys played the Wayne Firehouse?
Yeah.
Holy shit, dude! We like grew up. The OG, I guess Bomb Shelter probably put it on. I don't. You probably wouldn't know the name.
Yeah, I don't know that, but like, yeah, we played there at least once. Yeah, and then there's a VFW hall up there that we would play. I mean, just crazy, like bands that we played there with Killswitch Engage at a little VFW hall one time. Yeah, it's really crazy. Melody Bar was my favorite place. That's the place. Like that was like, oh yeah, we get to play cool because they had more of a PA. And
were you a Lifetime fan at all?
A little bit. Not. I was more of a fan of the bands that they inspired. There's a band from up there called X Number 5. I don't know if you remember them.
Yep.
Kind of a similar thing. Who became really good friends and just hung out with them when we played in New Jersey at Salty's. Some of them were out and whatnot. Saves the Day, I know, took a lot from that, but I never fully. Some of the other guys were way more into it than me though.
Yeah, because their artwork for their last record was all shot at the Melody Bar. Oh, did you guys play Court Tavern?
Yeah, I don't know about that. That isn't. We would play Club Chrome a lot.
So basically, the record comes out and you guys break up right after, right? Or was it before the record came out?
Yeah, the record is out, and we did a few tours on it. Yeah, I think it was the second or third tour for that record is when we split.
Was there any talks of you guys breaking up before you got signed, or did that just happen suddenly after you get signed and record the record?
No, I mean, I think by the time we got to the last tour that we were on, I think going out on that tour, we kind of knew this might be it. We weren't sure, but and again, it's just like getting older and then grinding, and me having a kid. We're all it's like getting a little harder to pay your bills and go on tour because we're not really making money on tour. And again, part of that is because we only are wanting to accept like opening slots because we want, if we're going to go out, let's expand our base, you know. So we don't get paid that much. But unfortunately, the scene has shifted so much now at this point, and you know, the bands are blowing up, and the kids coming to the shows, like we are not what they want at all. And yeah, so it was just like, oh man, I feel like we're wasting our time out here. Like we're not. I don't think we're building anything. And some of these shows, we're playing in front of 2,000 people, and we're like selling almost no merch. I'm like, what are we doing?
I don't know if this makes any sense. I just kind of popped in my head. Do you think I thought that when the Warped Tour started, it was great in the very beginning, and then it turned into this weird fucking thing where it was like even more of a megaphone for the new sound that was coming out. Do you feel like, and this is just like a guess, do you feel like that kind of worked against you or some of the bands that were still around for that time, and they're like something because it made it so much bigger, so shit like that, it's like, oh, this is bringing all these new kids in, and then they're going to go to these other shows, and it's like they're looking for Warped Tour sound, not what we're doing.
Oh yeah, yeah. But I mean, I will say like Codeseven again. Like I said, when people expect one thing, we'll go the opposite direction. Like you could see like where things were going, and we didn't like it. We are intentionally avoiding that. We don't want to get lumped in to that sound, even though you know we're still playing with a lot of bands, and we're throwing away like potentially getting things really going off the ground because you can see what people are wanting. We could go to that, but that's just not how we work. And if anything, we self-sabotage and run away from it, even though we could cater to the people that we know we're probably going to play in front of, but for whatever reason, like we have to go the opposite direction, for better or worse. It's not the best business move, but we just didn't. Everything was shifting into this, the mall metal stuff, and we just did not want anything to do with that. When the last record came out, we were pushing the label to really get us into even other areas that were a little bit maybe scene adjacent, just because it's like, I don't know, this is where this is going is not where we're going. If there's a home anywhere else, if we could kind of maybe lean to this other side to try to get away from the whole Warped Tour thing and what it was becoming. So yeah, I mean we don't fit in and we don't want to fit in. And when we would play for those crowds, they didn't want us either. So it was just like, you know what, let's just, I got a little kid. I should probably just be staying at home because this is starting to feel like a waste of time. Everything that was there in the 90s that you were building towards, and there was a thing that was so cool and just felt so great, but it felt like it wasn't there anymore. And then, the labels were starting to sell tons of records, and getting a little taste of some real money. Yeah, it was just like, I don't think I want to do this anymore.
I feel like kind of going back to the beginning of the conversation where we're talking about you're going to local shows and you're not really fitting in. Like you like the kids, but you don't like the sound of the punk bands that were playing. Then you go to the metal shows, but you like the sound, but you don't like the kids, and then you find the middle ground was hardcore. So it's like, okay, you're looking for it and you find it. It's almost like at the end, you're almost getting pushed out. You're like, there's really no place for us to go now.
Yeah, everything that you loved about it, which was the community aspect, I guess. Like it just felt like it was gone. Some of the bands were able to push through it and then have massive success. And then some of us, it's not that we couldn't. We could have gone for the swoopy hair thing, and we couldn't do it. It's just like that's not what we were into. So we just would rather, go down with the ship or whatever, than try to jump on that.
It's almost like, now, I've never thought of this either. It's a lot of bands that I've talked to or people I talked to, they most likely grew up in the 80s, so they grew up with Def Leppard and Motley Crue, watching that shit. And why they like the local scene is because they'd go and the band would be on the floor and they're like, there's no barrier between me and this band. I can like talk to them. I can do this. It's almost like in the early 2000s, it flipped back over to that 80s things where it became a divide between the band and the crowd, where there wasn't that like scene feel anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, like in the 80s, once, you get MTV, and that's me. And there's nothing wrong with that because that was me watching, Poison and Motley Crue. I'm learning about it through TV, and then now I'm all about it, and I'm wanting to go to those shows, even though I was never able to. But I was a little too young. But But I'm there because what I see on TV and because it looks cool, and I'm young, and that's, it looks like the hot thing. So the next wave of kids, once it reaches the point to MTV and stuff, they're doing the exact same thing I did. So there's nothing wrong with that. But it was just like, you don't expect it to be your area, your scene, like kind of getting caught up in the middle of it. All these major labels are coming to see us, and they're signing all these other bands that we were playing with. It's not quite like the whole grunge thing, it's a little different, but a lot of those bands got caught up into it just because we think there's about to be a major run to make some money. So everybody's starting to jump on it, and everything just kind of changes really quickly, and it's not the same thing that got you into it in the first place. And we're right in the middle of it. We know it's pretty obvious what they want, but like that's just not what we couldn't bring ourselves to ever cater to what was feeling popular. Like, we just can't do it. So it was just smarter for us just to quit.
2010, was that difficult getting you guys to want to do that? I mean, was it just to go on tour with Kate or Circa Survive?
It was we did a Dredge and Animals Leaders, yeah. We had done a reunion show, like our first show since breaking up, a little before that. And then the Circa Survive guys, who, we toured with this day forward, two of the guys, and they were on Equal Vision. So we were good friends with all these guys already, And then when they saw that we played a little reunion show, they were like, well, do you want to just keep going a little bit longer and do this tour? And so anyway, we said yes. That's just kind of how that happened.
How long did you guys go on tour for that?
It was a full U.S., so it was at least a month.
In the beginning, obviously, it's exciting, and then did it sustain like that through the whole time, or towards the end, you're like, this is why we're not doing this full time anymore?
Yeah, no, that's exactly how it. Like when we got to the end, it was just like, yeah, this was maybe not smart. We should have just kept it dead a little bit, because we were. It's still, like I said, a little dysfunctional and whatnot. And then honestly, going into that, we had toured with Dredge many times. We probably played more shows with Dredge than any other band. Great friends, and our crowd's definitely different, but like it was always still pretty good. And then Circa kind of had a spacey thing, and I really thought like their crowd would be they might actually be into what we're doing, I mean, I know they had done really well and they had a young audience, but their crowd didn't really get us either, which I think we were kind of shocked by, because we had done the Coe tour, which is again kind of similar, and that tour, like, we sold more merch than we've ever sold on any tour. We were thinking like, oh, this would probably be pretty good, but they still, again, they had such a young audience, and we were at that point looking like grandpas up there playing our old man music, and they didn't really want anything to do with us, it felt like. And same with Dredge. Dredge was getting extremely frustrated on that tour, because it was very much a Circa Survive crowd, and they were struggling too, which I was shocked by. Like, just the younger crowd that kind of came up through the swoopy hair stuff. It's just like, it's not us.
Well, it's funny because Circa Survive wasn't the swoopy hair crowd. Like, I thought.
No, I mean, I didn't think so either. When I say, well, it's just like I said, it was a lot of kids, like young girls just getting dropped off at the front by their parents, who probably maybe not even old enough to drive, which I honestly was not expecting at all.
I mean, you also have Anthony Green. I mean, it's like, that's a hard show to be like, not to follow or like, lead up to. But I mean, I have a feeling that a lot of people going to see Circa Survive is like, his stage presence is so amazing that, like, I think they're just like, we're just here to see them get the fuck off the stage, which sucks.
Yeah, I mean, even maybe potentially for the band themselves, they're like, you're just, for Circa anyway, their band is like, you're great, but like, that's kind of what it's kind of felt like, that they were kind of in the background compared to that. Maybe, I don't know. Like I said, like, I think maybe a lot of the people at that time going to those shows, they really wanted to see Anthony. It was like a little crush rock star thing, kind of going to the shows for what I would call the wrong reasons, but when a lot of the crowd is there for those reasons, like, we're just like, whatever.
Go Let It In. What leads you guys to now putting that out last year and then going on a little tour with He's Legend?
Yeah, probably when Furnace Fest came back, and we agreed to play that. That was what got us out of retirement, I guess, for the first time since then. Maybe we did one like local show. But then COVID hit, and Furnace Fest moves everything back an entire year. If Codeseven were to do like a one-off show or whatever, you do it, and then when it's done, and you put it to bed, and you move on. You go back to your normal life. But when we agreed to do that, and then COVID hits, now it's an entire year later, that I think kind of not being able to put it to bed, and kind of having this, knowing that we still have this thing that we have to do, so you can't just forget about it. So we have a whole year where we're still kind of in Codeseven mode, I guess, mentally, and we're practicing, and we're changing up a whole rig and stuff. So we're trying to figure that stuff out too, just because more of it just a project, just because it was fun to figure out, like in-ears, and we moved to Axe FXs at that point. So there's a lot of stuff to figure out. So we were together a lot, and I think that's mainly why we couldn't really put it to bed. Because we were kind of stuck in that COVID limbo, and because of that, we're interacting and working on stuff, and it kind of feels good to have this thing, practicing or jamming or whatever. It kind of felt good too, like to not go back to just no music. That's where it all kicked off. I think if we had done Furnace Fest without the COVID break and whatnot, I doubt we would have done another record.
It's pretty impressive too to wait that long and then bust out 10 songs.
Yeah, we wanted to. I don't know. There's a lot of bands that have done comeback albums or whatever, where they'll do a song and then that's it, or maybe they do an EP. And I know for me, like, I'm just like, I'm not saying they did it for the wrong reasons or money or whatever, just to have something to put out. But I just didn't want it to look like that at all. If we were going to do something, I was like, let's treat it like a real record, a full album. And do it like we would have done it. I don't want anybody thinking that this is just us, like, oh, we're a little bored or whatever, so we'll put together a song and put it out. Put together a few songs, we'll call it EP. After that long, this almost a 20-year break. If it hadn't been that long, I would have been probably more okay. But it's just like I felt like there was something to prove. And when we played Furnace Fest, this is just me. I don't think anybody else felt that way. But there was talking to some people. It's like, it sucks that you guys, can't write anymore, don't know how to do it or whatever. I'm like, wait, what? Like we choose not to do it. Like it's not that we can't. And there could have only been one or two people that said that. But in my back of my head, usually people are asking for a new record. You guys need to do something. But it was more, I think, after we played Furnace Fest, it was like, well, we're just happy with what we have. And it had kind of gotten to that point to where nobody's even asking for new music. They're like past that because they're like, that's never going to happen. And it's like, wait, I don't like the way that feels. So and in my head, that it was a little bit of that too. It's like, well, let's just do something to show people, like, if we wanted to do music, we've chosen not to really do it as a band, but if we wanted to, we could. It's not that we can't. So for me, it was just like, okay, well, I'll show you.
If you look at the numbers too on Spotify, you guys have the average amount of plays equal to your previous releases. So that's got to say something.
Yeah, I mean, like, it didn't get a big push from Equal Vision. Like, I don't think Equal Vision thought we were going to even play any shows on it, but they really wanted to release it.
I didn't even know they were still a label.
Yeah, they're doing good. Like some of the bigger bands that they kickstarted Polyphia, that was on Equal Vision originally, their first record. They've had some pretty decent things, but yeah, they're still a label. But I felt like there's not a ton of hardcore stuff on their label anymore. It's a lot more chiller music. We were technically, I guess, under contract. We never fulfilled the original contract. So at the very least, we were like, we had to go to them and say, like, well, I don't know how this works. Can we do something if we want to release it ourselves? Like, because that's kind of what we were thinking. We just put it out ourselves. But talking with Dan at Equal Vision, he was just like, well, why don't I release it? So, and that's just kind of how that ended up working out, which is cool. It's really cool.
Do they expect anything from that, or because they put the money up? Or?
I mean, I think we didn't. There was no real marketing push at all. So I feel like the people that heard the new record were people that were already kind of listening to the older stuff, or just right adjacent to it. It never got a big push, but they were also like we don't expect anything. You don't have to tour. You don't have to do anything. You've earned the rights to just put it out. We don't expect you to do X amount of shows or whatever. They were like, we're just really happy that there's new music. That's the main thing.
Well, it's interesting because you guys break up right after you release your record on their label, and then they come back almost 20 years later and like, yeah, we got this.
Yeah, no, I mean, I honestly didn't didn't expect that at all. Like I said, like we were probably, I mean, we're so removed from everything at this point. We'll just put it out ourselves, I guess. I don't know. We weren't even sure if we could get to the end of the recording, because if it didn't meet our expectations, we wouldn't have put it out. Or if we couldn't grind through the hurdles, because it was a year and a half of writing. Pretty much like every day, somebody was working on something every day, and there was a lot of stuff that got trashed and didn't get used, and there was a lot of learning to work together. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that just got thrown out. Just trying to get back. It's like if it's going to come out under the Codeseven name, it's got to be what we want it to be, not just music. It's got to be what we want, and feel like we're at least where we were when we broke up as a songwriters. So, and it took a long time. Almost 2 years technically by the time the record came out, and we were finishing it up as it was being mixed. Like we were running real late on that one, but yeah, yeah. So it took a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of frustration and arguing. Like you can't believe the amount of arguing that happened to get to the end of that record, but we got there.
Are you guys happy with? You weren't happy with the first video, but you guys have one out for Rough Seas. Are you happy with that one?
Yeah, yeah. I thought Justin, he's a very old friend,
It looks good.
yeah, yeah. We thought that was cool. Like I mean, and honestly, that was one of our goals is to we got to get something else out there. So because if all the best is all we got. Not saying anything bad about the guy who directed the video. He's a really nice guy. He still works today. He does a lot of big videos, but like it just wasn't what we were looking for. So that was one more little chat box. Let's just get something out there that is not just that video, because that's another thing that just over the years drive me crazy.
Released a year ago, it was 108,000 views. That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, Equal Vision definitely helped give it a push and whatnot. And like, I mean, and they, not to say they didn't do any marketing, but it was definitely one of those things where you don't have to go out and promote it and treat this like a real band or whatever. We just want new music. So it's kind of like one of those things. And then I think we've talked to them since, and Dan was like, well, we ended up playing on the festivals, and then doing all these shows, and then a full tour. And then he's like, if I'd known you guys were going to go like that, we wouldn't have done like a December release and would have built more of a marketing plan up. But we didn't know we were going to do all that. Up until the very end, we weren't positive we were going to be able to turn in a record, because it was a lot of work. And we were talking with Equal Vision the whole way, kind of letting them know, oh, we're trying. But he was like, the label, they were like real cool about it. There was no pressure. I mean, we hadn't done a record in 20 years. It doesn't matter if we don't do one now. He just wanted to. He left all the pressure off, to which helped us, get to the end of it, I guess.
Is there a story that you've never told in an interview that you'd like to tell now?
I mean, like a fun little story, I guess, that I doubt we've ever talked about is like in the earlier days, a lot of times we would travel together with the bands that we were with, because this is, I mean, maybe we're map questing at this time, I'm not sure, but it's a lot of atlases, and that's how we get, from town to town. And so we would travel together a lot of times if we were in a package tour or whatever with the bands. We would go together just because it was easier, because like we're stopping and asking for directions, every gas station when you get into town. It's nothing like it is now. So we would travel together, and there was so many with the other bands, and there was so many very dangerous. There was just a lot of battles with throwing tons of trash at each other while we're driving down the highways at very fast speeds, and doing some very questionable things while driving, because you get bored and you're traveling together. Yeah, I doubt we ever talked about it, and I'm pretty sure it's pretty common, but a lot of road battles. Well, yeah, fireworks. It would get kind of weird.
Were you guys like just pretty mischievous like that on tour, or just a little bit here and there?
It's just boredom, I think, or it was just with the other bands would start it, and it's like, okay, well, we got to retaliate now. So you kind of forced into it maybe. But yeah, fireworks in vans, and there was a lot of fun stuff back then.
Last two questions for us. Last question. Is there anything you'd like to plug? It could be about you, it could be about a friend or a cause, it can be about all of them.
I'm gonna say no. I don't think besides the album, which it's been out for over years, so there's not much to plug.
But you could buy it on vinyl though.
Yeah, I think there's still vinyl. Yeah, I think they repressed it actually. I know. I think it ran out, but I think it is repressed and you can get it. Yeah, you can just check it out. I guess. I got nothing. I mean, there's some other stuff that I could promote, but it's not really related to the band. It doesn't.
No, it could be about anything. It doesn't have to be about the band. It could be about just something you want to bring attention to. The floor is yours, man.
I'd say no. No, I don't want to. I don't promote nothing. Just check out the music if you haven't heard it.
The record's on Equal Vision's website. It says it's in stock. And it's got like what's this like pink marble, pink with neon magnetic. I love that. I love color vinyl. All right, dude. Last question. What scene ethics do you hold on to this day?
Um, it's the do-it-yourself thing is, I think, without a doubt, number one. That's where I learned it. I didn't know about it. Like you could make your own records, make your own shirts, record your own music or whatever, and not counting on anybody else or waiting for somebody else to do it for you. I learned that going to shows, and it is easily the most important thing I think I ever learned was that you can do it yourself, and you don't need anybody else to do it. And there's a way, and you just have to put a little effort into it.